While I am perfectly aware of the stereotype of fighting games being hard to learn, let alone to excel in, I strongly believe in recommending fighting game players, both beginners and veterans, to play as many fighting games as they want. Personally, I believe that people will only have difficulty in switching between fighting games if they haven't worked hard on building strong fundamentals from the beginning, or if they are at the start of their journey, if they aren't looking to build them while starting. I started my competitive history with fighting games by playing Street Fighter 3 The Third Strike. This wasn't my first fighting game, as I've been playing them casually for a long time. However, when I finally found out that there was a Street Fighter 3, since the series sold notoriously low for various reasons and had next to no promotion in Italy, I got interested in getting good at the game. First, mostly to play with my friends. Then, learning on the internet that people organize tournaments to actually get good at the game. Starting my competitive adventure with Hugo, a grappler character and a fairly low tier one at that, I destroyed the stereotype that wants beginners needing to start with Shoto characters, or generally characters with easy inputs. I trained hard to be able to execute SPDs, but even more to understand neutral and learn with precision how to defend from my opponent's attack and turn defense into opportunities with parries. When I first played the game with somewhat competitive gamers, I surprised folks by laying waste to the best players there in just 3 weeks. I understood pretty quickly that with such a big, slow character with very situational normals, the best chance to lay my SPDs down wouldn't come from reckless aggression, but rather from cautious analysis and precision in my approach. While attending my first tournament for the game, which was Battle of Destiny 2008 in London, I started playing casuals on Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo with Spinal Blood, probably the best I got in Europe, which got me interested in learning the game. I liked Boxer, always had a thing for boxers, and started learning the character. While working to get better with him, I learned that despite the character being really stupid, his speed is incredible and he can buffer charges with executing specials, he still struggled in matchups where he had to work around fireballs, and started methodically learning how to navigate through fireballs, how to guard a corner when I successfully corner someone, and using all my tools for both fireball navigation and screen control. At the peak of my skill, I started rivaling Spinal Blood in the Boxer vs. Sagat matchup in the glory days of Kyle Letternach play. In Super Turbo, there is a constant, intense battle for screen control, due to jumps being anti-airable often with sweeps, so jumping over fireballs, if you don't have a clear read or a precise timing and choice of normals, can put you back at the starting point, dealing with the zoning. I started playing Street Fighter 4 in Sweden. Well, I started with Arcade Edition 3 weeks before version 2012 was set to come out, and by applying what I knew from other games, I was able to beat everyone there but an Ibuki player, since I didn't know how to deal with the Vortex. I took a step back and started focusing way more on whiff punishing, for which I had some practice using Dudley's roundhouse into Machine Gun Blow and Third Strike, and started training for crouching medium kick whiff punishes, so to sweep Ibuki and start laying down my ILO mix-up game and at the same time avoid being put in her Vortex. Meanwhile, I was also playing other old fighters online on GGPO, including Samurai Showdown 2. If you don't know the series, it's a fairly usually slow game, due to how much damage can be dished at any moment and the fact that, in certain conditions, you can easily die in 1 or 2 hits. This taught me the necessity of being careful with my poking, analytical and avoid being predictable, while still staying threatening with my offense. To start putting things together, I learned a slow, methodical play while being trained by Super Turbo to react fast, by Samurai Showdown to keep my poking unpredictable, use the clock as a resource, and employ my dry poking the best I can. It made me patient and analytical in my approach, as well as selective in archiving information about a player and their habits, since their habits in Third Strike can offer huge openings for characters that aren't that great at opening up their opponent on their own. Garou, Mark of the Wolves, and mostly my character Okutomaru, having terrible anti-airs especially without meter, offered me a big insight in how air-to-airing and trip-guarding jumping opponents by low profiling with slide were respectable alternatives to anti-airing. His 9 ways double jump made me understand the value of both jump arcs and the value of baiting with aerial movement. The King of Fighters series taught me about preventing my opponent entirely from jumping at me, after applying pressure with lows. Since jumps are shallow, hard to react to due to their speed, often with very threatening hitboxes, it is a necessity to stop people from constantly jumping onto you and converting on hit. In KOF, you do that by using light horizontal buttons, since DPs and command anti-airs are often way too slow to challenge hops and hyper hops. As a consequence, you can apply this also to the offensive phase, by pressuring someone with lows and instantly anti-airing their jumps with far lights, or, if you're baiting them to anti-air you after your pressure, frame trap their incoming light. Funny enough, preventing people from jumping at you with lights came back to me pretty much instinctively when fighting the Capre for the first time. A react stomp cancel from normals pretty much works like a very fast KOF hop, and recognizing that, I understood, without anyone showing me, that I could interrupt her before she stomps by jabbing her. Now, imagine if that happened with one scenario, how many instances of different concepts from different fighting games can be applied by your brain to several scenarios without you even noticing, and how different games can challenge you with their unique obstacles, structures, mechanics, and dynamics. One of the most interesting experiences for me, a player that is strongly defensive, came with Tekken 7. In Tekken, as a beginner of the series, I felt at ease with the movement since I already made mine concepts like spacing with punishing and poking. However, the challenge came in the defensive phase. Differently from 2D, in Tekken and in other 3D games, the bigger moveset and the fact that many strings come with the inbuilt mix-up forces the defending player to either learn all of these moves and the way to react, read, and crash accordingly, or to set themselves on the offense, since if they are blocking your offense, you're not going to need to block theirs. Pushing a player like me to be offensive is a huge task, mostly because I know that I can deal with 95% of the stuff I face in 2D by being defensive, and only really switch to full offense when their defense is much better than mine. Being challenged by Tekken made me somewhat decent at the game, for the time spent learning it and for my self-set goals, and made me also aware of how much I rely on defense in my play. I have played way too many fighting games to make a case for all of them, but as long as you have put work in understanding how the neutral works in the particular game, usually you can be somewhat competitive despite knowing way less about the game than your opponent, since you make it so much harder for them to steamroll you if you're able to keep them off you. Hell, for the short time I played Smash Ultimate, I even got compliments for my neutral there, and I was more or less just playing KOF. I was pleasantly surprised by the Under Night series, which worked the reward system, the Vortex, into the game, rewarding players not only for the usual get aggressive at all costs and hit them, but also for careful defense, Warpal cycle awareness, and stalling interaction by getting out of range if you have the advantage on the cycle. A very in-depth explanation of Grid and Vorpal can be found in the dedicated link in the description below. Systems like these can passively teach players a lot about playing smart, bending the meta to your will, and thinking outside the box. Lateral thinking is, in my opinion, the single most important mind skill when it comes to fighting games proficiency, and the aspect that separates successful fighting game players from players that struggle in winning and learning. I will talk about lateral thinking and its application to fighting games in depth in my next video essay. Credits to all my supporters for the support, and Nabs for a brief clarification on Vorpal, as well as @InfinityFG for the in-depth article linked, and a Chef Raptor for the Samsho clips. If you have enjoyed this video essay, please consider subscribing to my channel, as there are more video essays coming. Also, consider joining my Discord community, which has been set up as a supportive environment for everyone to learn and enjoy fighting games without any pressure. I also do coaching. You can check my coaching profile, rates, and which games I coach for free on my Metafile profile linked in the description below. I stream on Twitch and my channel name is the FG Treehouse, which stands for the Fighting Games Treehouse. You can find a link to my Twitch in the description too.